It was a word etched into wood, a silent testament on an empty shore. CROATOAN. The letters were carved deep into a palisade post, stark and clear against the weathered grain. They were the only definitive message left behind by more than 100 English souls who had sought to build a new Jerusalem in the heart of a vast, unknown continent. They had arrived on a sliver of land off the coast of what would become North Carolina, an island they named Roanoke. They built homes, they started families, they dreamed of a future. Then, within 3 short years, they vanished as if consumed by the very wilderness they had hoped to tame. The settlement was gone, dismantled with a strange, deliberate care. No bodies, no bones, no signs of a bloody struggle. There was only this single cryptic word, a signpost pointing toward a deeper mystery. This is the story of that disappearance, a foundational American enigma that has haunted historians, archaeologists, and dreamers for over 4 centuries. It is a narrative woven from the threads of hope and desperation, of colonial ambition, and the unforgiving realities of a new land. The story begins not with the vanishing, but with the bold, often reckless drive of an empire reaching across an ocean. England under Queen Elizabeth I was hungry for a piece of the New World, a world already being carved up by its Spanish rivals. Roanoke was to be their first permanent stake, a symbol of English resolve and a gateway to the continent's fabled riches. The story of the lost colonists begins with the grand ambitions of Sir Walter Raleigh, a favored courtier of Queen Elizabeth I. In 1584, he was granted a charter to colonize North America, and he quickly dispatched a reconnaissance mission led by Philip Amatus and Arthur Barlow. Their reports back to England were glowing, describing the land as a paradise, its soil fertile, and its native inhabitants most gentle, loving, and faithful. This idealized vision was precisely what Raleigh needed to secure investors and recruit settlers for a permanent military and scientific outpost. In 1585, the first attempt was made. A group of about 107 men, mostly soldiers, established a settlement on the northern end of Roanoke Island. Their primary goal was not to farm, but to explore, search for precious metals, and establish a base for privateering against Spanish treasure fleets. This first colony was ill-fated from the start. Under the stern leadership of Governor Ralph Lane, relations with the local Algonquian tribes quickly soured. The English, dependent on the natives for food, became increasingly demanding. Tensions escalated, culminating in Lane leading an attack on a native village, killing its chief, Wingina. This act of violence poisoned the well of goodwill, turning potential allies into wary enemies. The colonists struggled through the winter, their supplies dwindling and their position growing more precarious. Undeterred by this failure, Raleigh organized a second, more ambitious expedition in 1587. This time, the plan was different. The goal was not a military outpost, but a true settlement, a self-sustaining agricultural colony. This group, known to history as the Lost Colony, was comprised of 117 men, women, and children. Raleigh appointed John White, an artist and cartographer who had been part of the 1585 expedition, as the governor. White's detailed watercolor paintings of the landscape and its people from his first trip provide us with an invaluable visual record of this lost world. The colonists were supposed to settle further north, in the Chesapeake Bay area, but a dispute with the fleet's pilot, Simon Fernandez, resulted in them being put ashore back at the abandoned 1585 site on Roanoke Island. Their arrival was immediately fraught with difficulty. They found the fort and houses of the previous expedition in disrepair, and the legacy of Ralph Lane's aggression lingered. The local CROATOAN tribe was now hostile. A lone English colonist, George Howe, was ambushed and killed while crabbing alone, his body riddled with 16 arrows. Despite this, the colonists tried to establish a sense of normalcy. They repaired the structures, planted crops, and on August 18, 1587, a significant event occurred. Eleanor Dare, John White's daughter, gave birth to a baby girl. They named her Virginia. Her birth was a powerful symbol of hope, a sign that English life could take root and flourish in this new, wild place. As the summer of 1587 waned, a sense of deep unease settled over the small colony. They had arrived too late to plant and harvest enough crops and could not hope to survive the coming winter on what they had. Provisions meant to last had already been carefully rationed. The colonists decided someone must return to plead for immediate aid, to gather more food, to gather tools, to gather reinforcements. After much debate, they persuaded their governor, John White, to go. Leaving them behind was an agonizing gamble. Before departing in late August 1587, White set a crucial contingency plan: carve the name of any new location into a tree or post. If they left under duress, add a Maltese cross above the name. He watched Roanoke's shores recede, unaware he would be the last Englishman to see them alive. On the evening of August 17, 1590, as John White's ship lay at anchor off the coast of Roanoke, the crew spotted smoke rising from the direction of the island. A surge of hope ran through the governor. Smoke meant fire, and fire meant people. It meant his colonists, his family, had survived. That night, the ship's trumpeters sounded familiar English tunes, and the men called out into the darkness, but only the echo of their own voices returned from the silent shore. The next morning, on August 18th, his granddaughter Virginia Dare's third birthday, White and a landing party rode to the island. What they found was not a thriving settlement, but a scene of eerie and profound emptiness. The place was deserted. As they walked toward the site of the colony, they found that the houses had been taken down. The entire area where the settlement had stood was now enclosed by a high defensive wall, or palisade. This suggested the colonists had become fearful of an attack at some point. But within this enclosure, there was no sign of life. The ground was overgrown with weeds and melon vines. They found several small iron objects, some lead, and 4 small cannons. But there were no people, no boats, and most disturbingly, no human remains. It was not a scene of slaughter, but of methodical abandonment. Then they found the clue. Carved into a large post at the entrance to the palisade were the letters CROATOAN. There was no Maltese cross carved above the letters. The absence of this symbol of distress gave him a renewed sense of hope. He knew CROATOAN referred to modern Hatteras Island and the friendly Manteo tribe. As the search party prepared to leave, they found another faint clue, the letters CRO carved into a nearby tree. Section 6. Theory 1. The path of assimilation. The most widely accepted theory is that the colonists chose to assimilate with local Native Americans. This hinges on one piece of evidence: the word CROATOAN. This was not a random carving. It pointed to CROATOAN Island, the people who lived there. Led by the friendly chief Manteo. He had been baptized. He had even traveled to England. Faced with dwindling supplies, escalating hostility from other mainland tribes, and the failure of John White to return as promised, it seems logical that the colonists would seek refuge with the most reliable allies they had. The absence of the Maltese cross suggests a planned, peaceful move, not a panicked flight. Evidence to support this theory has surfaced in fragmented accounts over the centuries. John Lawson's 1709 book, A New Voyage to Carolina. He wrote that Hatteras Indians claimed some of their ancestors were white. He noted some of these individuals had gray eyes, which they said was a trait passed down through generations. Later settlers reported similar stories from native communities. Tales of fair-skinned, light-haired people who could read from a book, likely the Bible. In recent years, the assimilation theory has been the focus of renewed archaeological efforts. The First Colony Foundation has conducted excavations on Hatteras Island. Their work unearthed a mix of late 16th century English and Native American artifacts in the same soil layers: borderware pottery, part of a rapier hilt, a lead slate pencil, a small copper ingot. While these items don't prove the colonists lived there, their presence in domestic native contexts suggests close interaction. However, the assimilation theory is not without its challenges. We lack English-style structures, a larger concentration of European goods, or a distinct burial ground. DNA studies remain inconclusive. Section 7. Theory 2. The shadow of violence. An alternative and much darker theory posits that the Roanoke Colony was destroyed by force. The most likely perpetrators in this scenario would be a Native American tribe. The English had a troubled history with some of the local Algonquian peoples. The military aggression of the first colony in 1585, which resulted in the murder of a chief, had created deep-seated resentment. The second colony experienced this hostility firsthand with the killing of George Howe. Captain John Smith, leader of Jamestown, wrote that Chief Powhatan allegedly confessed he had orchestrated the slaughter of the Roanoke settlers, claiming they had moved among the Chesapeake. Smith even produced a map showing the supposed location of their demise. While dramatic, its veracity is questionable. When John White returned, he found no skeletons, no mass graves, no signs of battle. Houses were carefully dismantled, not burned. It is possible the colonists initially moved, carving Croatoan as their intended destination, but were attacked en route or at a different location. Another possibility is an attack by the Spanish. A Spanish reconnaissance mission searched in 1588, but found Roanoke already deserted. Section 8. The Desperate March. A third major theory: the colonists disappeared after a desperate, ill-fated attempt to relocate on their own. After a year or two waiting for John White, they concluded help wasn't coming. Facing starvation and isolation on Roanoke Island, they broke up and moved inland seeking a sustainable location. They originally intended to settle the Chesapeake Bay area. It was thought to be more fertile and to offer a better deep-water harbor. They may have attempted the journey in small, fragmented groups. The carving of Croatoan could have been deliberate misdirection to send Spanish pursuers south, while the main group traveled north or west. Or it could mean one small group went to Roanoke Island while most made a bigger trek inland, up the Chowan River or the Roanoke. In 2012, imaging of John White's map revealed a hidden four-pointed star about 50 miles inland. Excavations at Site X produced late 16th century English pottery, intriguing but not conclusive. Section 9. An unfading mystery. For over 400 years, the fate of the lost colony of Roanoke has remained one of America's most compelling historical puzzles. The story is a haunting confluence of ambition, tragedy, and ambiguity. We are left with a collection of fragmented clues: a carefully dismantled fort, a handful of scattered European artifacts found in native villages, conflicting second-hand reports from decades later, and above all, a single word carved into a wooden post: Croatoan. It was intended as an answer, a signpost for a governor returning to his family. Instead, it became the focal point of an enduring question: what happened to the men, women, and children of Roanoke? The leading theories each offer a plausible narrative. The idea of assimilation with the friendly Croatoan people is supported by the carved word itself and by later accounts of gray-eyed natives, suggesting a peaceful merging of two cultures born from necessity. The theory of a violent end, whether at the hands of a hostile tribe like Powhatan's warriors or a rival European power, speaks to the brutal realities of the 16th century Atlantic world. Finally, the possibility of a desperate march inland, perhaps toward a secret fort, captures the colonists' agency and their grim determination to survive against all odds. Each of these scenarios fits some of the evidence, yet none can account for all of it. The truth may very well be a complex combination of all three.